Peter Dodema. I'm the priest right down the street at the Episcopal Church of the Ascension, and I am new in town, been here since September, so we're still finding our way around, my wife and my son and I. But am delighted to be with you during Holy Week, excited to be here on Holy Monday. I wish we could all be in person, but here we are meeting safely through safe distancing, so here we are. All right. Well, the text that I've been given for today is Isaiah 42, 1 through 9. Isaiah 42, 1 through 9. And I think it's really, really appropriate for this day and age and for our time together right now. The history behind Isaiah is that it was written during times of great social upheaval, times where the Jewish kingdoms were under threat. They were always small, these ancient Jewish kingdoms of Israel and Judah. They were always under threat from larger enemies like Egypt and Babylon and other places that had much larger armies and economies. And so the different prophecies, the different chapters of Isaiah are written out of that time of anxiety where the Hebrews didn't know from day to day whether they were even going to have a country anymore or not, because there were always large armies just over the hill outside the border, ready to attack and gobble them up. And fortunately or unfortunately, Israel also set at an important crossroads point in ancient trade. So it was a good idea from the vantage point of these enemy armies to dominate and perhaps conquer these little kingdoms because they sat right where trade routes crossed one another. So for Isaiah and for the other Jewish people, it was a time of great anxiety for them. And so the God that we encounter here, this God that is confident and loving, that will not break the reed or quench the burning wick, the God that is there, all-powerful, but still passionate for and compassionate of his people, is exactly the God that we need today. We need this God. Here as we are in Holy Week and as we are in the midst of this pandemic, as we have scattered, as we are surrounded by so much information, some of it very helpful, and some of it virtually useless and contradictory, some of it, in fact, malicious, depending on where you're getting your news. We need to remember that this God that cared for our Hebrew ancestors and that cares for us today is the God that we need. As I said, this is Holy Week. This is a time where we begin by celebrating Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem. A lot of our churches celebrated Palm Sunday yesterday. So the hosannas and the celebration and excitement around Jesus entering the holy city. People spreading their clothing and their palm branches on the road to welcome Jesus into the city. And we celebrate that great authority of Jesus today, the way that he moved and inspired people, and the deep, deep feelings that people had that this is God's Son. That's who we follow these days. Yes, we have leaders here, temporal leaders, that are doing the best they can to cope with the situation that we're dealing with right now. But the bottom line is that they are only part of the story. We follow the Jesus that entered Jerusalem in triumph on Palm Sunday, the Jesus that taught with authority in the temple, and we celebrate and follow the Jesus that rose from the dead, that was humble enough to follow where God led, was humble enough and strong enough to endure the agony of the cross, but also rose again and builds a place for us. What did he say? If I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself. So during Holy Week, during this time, I encourage you to meditate on the words of Isaiah and to also meditate on our gospel readings for this week. Isaiah, who preaches and speaks and witnesses to this powerful God of compassion, who is there with you and me, who knows us intimately, loves us deeply and accepts us unconditionally. And meditate on and celebrate Jesus, the Son of God, who went through, endured everything during Holy Week for you and for me, again, for great love of you. Know this week that you are cared for and loved. Know that you are known and that you are important to God where you are, just as you are. Take comfort this week in knowing that you are God's beloved child. Amen.